Good evening, and welcome to the New Bedford Whaling Museum Sailor Series. We look forward at the museum every year to the start of this series, both because we love hearing tales of learning and adventure at sea, and because for us, the launch of the Sailor Series signals the start of spring, and we've all been looking forward to spring this year. My name is Emily Mead. I am Director of Philanthropy for the New Bedford Whaling Museum. And before we get started, I just wanted to briefly acknowledge that the Sailor Series over a number of years has been supported by the Ruth and Hope Atkinson, and it's also supported in part by the Samuel D. Rositsky Lecture Fund. So we're grateful to the Atkinson and Rositsky families for their help in sustaining the series over many years. I also want to thank Bay Coast Bank for sponsoring the 2021 Sailor Series and for their support of other museum programs and events throughout the year as well. And finally, I want to thank all of you for joining us. We are far-flung and virtual tonight, but my colleagues and I really look forward to seeing you here at the museum soon. We are open 7 days a week with limited capacity and adherence to all public health guidelines. So you can visit our brand new website and reserve your timed tickets and come see us on Johnny Cake Hill. Tonight, we are thrilled to have Charlie Enright joining us for a discussion about clean sailing and his experiences racing around the world. Charlie was born and raised in the maritime hub of Bristol, Rhode Island, and he learned to sail at a young age and eventually went on to join his college sailing team at Brown University. He had his first taste of offshore sailing in 2007 when he took part in the 44th Transpac yacht race. And he later entered the 2014-2015 Volvo Ocean Race with Team ALVIMEDICA, and again, the 2017-2018 Volvo Ocean Race with Festus 11th Hour Racing. And he led both of those campaigns as skipper. So now at the ripe old age of 36, Charlie has 2 round-the-world campaigns under his belt and over a decade of experience in offshore racing. So I want to welcome Charlie. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you to the museum for having me come. I'm coming at you live from Rhode Island, although I'm recently back from a 5-week stint training in France, back to get my vaccine. And I think as soon as I get my second, I'll be on my way back to France for a race that starts at the end of May called the Ocean Race Europe. But I guess we can kind of get into that later. I certainly wish that we were in person this evening, but it seems like the way things are trending, hopefully if this were to happen, at this time next year or in the fall, that would be the case, because I look forward to getting to the museum myself. We do some work with the museum along with a bunch of other organizations in the kind of southern New England area. So it'll be nice to do that in person rather than virtually, hopefully sometime soon. But what I will do now is I will share my screen and do a little presentation, make sure we're good to go. I hope, I guess no one else has access to the Zoom right now, but I'll just assume that we're good to go and kind of start from there. So I guess for starters, I'd just like to talk a little bit about this particular campaign in our team, the 11th Hour Racing Team, kind of what our goals are, what we have on the horizon, kind of where we come from, and what's the point of this whole thing, and why is it interesting to folks at home like you. So our goal first and foremost is to win the next edition of the Ocean Race, formerly the Volvo Ocean Race, and prior to that, the Whitbread Around the World Race. But to do so with sustainability at the core of everything that we do, of all team operations. We'd like to lead the way for sailing teams, but also for other international sports teams, and prove to the world that sustainability is not it's not a compromise. And in fact, in some ways, it can be performance enhancing element of any sports team. And so that's a grandiose goal on two fronts, both the sportive front and the sustainability front, but one that we've kind of taken on, head on and full steam ahead. And with COVID, everything's kind of been a year delayed. But the way that we've looked at that, which I think is a way a lot of people have looked at it, is an opportunity to not only get ahead on the performance side, on the sailing side, but also engaging with some of our partners, our collaborators, our grantees, and making sure that we're delivering maximum value and having as big an impact as we possibly can, even if it's remote. So that's the team's mission. But I guess I'll start by talking to you a little bit about 11th Hour Racing and what is 11th Hour Racing and why are they the primary title sponsor of our campaign. 11th Hour Racing is a subsidiary, if you will. It's a small part of the 11th Hour Project, which is a division of the Schmidt Family Foundation, the Schmidt family from California. 11th Hour Racing is really just kind of the tip of the iceberg. I mean, it seeks to promote sustainable practices in the sport of sailing, tries to tackle global problems, from a grassroots level with local solutions, and champion the causes of ocean health and climate change and marine debris and all the things that we as sailors, whether we like it or not, experience every day on a somewhat daily basis. The 11th Hour Project, kind of the parent, if you will, of 11th Hour Racing, tackles a number of other different social causes, whether it's food equality, it's social justice, it's renewable energy, it's you name it. In the Schmidt organization, there are a number of different partner entities that are all working toward a better global community, and some of which we work closer with than with others. I mean, Schmidt Ocean Institute, for instance, SOI is someone that we work with every day. They have a big research vessel called the Falcor that's currently in Australia mapping the Great Barrier Reef. For Schmidt Ventures, startups that try to capitalistically improve the planet, but in the case of our relationships, more specifically ocean health. But it's very humbling, certainly for me, to be part of a bigger organization that's just making such progress and taking big steps, making huge strides in this arena. Both Mark Towell, who I'll talk a little bit about later, and I have both been keynote speakers at the Schmidt Family Foundation Conference, which happens every October in San Francisco, or I guess prior to 2020, had happened every October in San Francisco for the last 10 years. And a couple of years ago, we were fortunate enough to be keynote speakers at this particular conference. And it was really an amazing experience, but it was very eye-opening. I mean, there are people under this umbrella doing some absolutely amazing and just empowering, motivational things, really saving the world stuff. And Mark and I looked at each other as we were giving this speech, and we were like, wow, we're just trying to sail around it. I mean, these people are like really doing amazing things. And it was just an absolutely humbling experience. And we feel very lucky to be able to partner with 11th Hour Racing and have a project that's so in line with goals that are, personal passions of ours. So that is by no means lost on us. So maybe I can show a little clip here about our team. right. Sorry about that. It was brought to my attention that perhaps some of you missed the audio because I muted myself. I was trying to be respectful and make sure everyone could hear, but what I actually did was make it so nobody could hear. So apologies. There's more video, and we will rectify that as we move forward. But basically, I guess just a little bit about myself, Emily. That was an awesome intro, I guess. Thank you very much. And the slide was pretty funny. Avid and accomplished sailor. I don't know if it's ever been put so concisely, and it's just a funny way to be referred as, I guess. But just to talk a little bit about where I came from, I grew up in Bristol, Rhode Island. I think it's a maritime hub. Was what was said during the introduction, and that's definitely true. I mean, just with the Herreshoff Museum and the Herreshoff Manufacturing Company, boat building, America's Cup Defenders, built in the town. But kind of more personal to me, my grandfather, who actually left us this year, was a man by the name of Clint Pearson, who was instrumental in the mass production of fiberglass boats here locally. It was just kind of something that I was inevitably going to get into, whether it was the plan or not. I started up in Narragansett Bay and Bristol Harbor. As I alluded to, my grandfather had a boatyard just down the street, and somebody left an Optimus dinghy behind when they were cruising here in Narragansett Bay, and that was the first boat that I learned to sail in. We cobbled together rig with some kind of borrowed parts from the yacht club across the way. And, I tied the painter to the dock, and it was up to me to figure out how to do it. And that was as much rope as I had. And it was frustrating at times because as soon as I felt like I was getting somewhere, I get to the end of my rope, but I guess kind of sometimes life feels like that too. But then, after that, it was the competitive nature of the sport that really grabbed hold of me. I started competing in Narragansett Bay at the age of 8, 9, 10 years old, in the Optimus class, and then, regionally throughout New England, in places like New Bedford and Marion at the Buzzards Bay Regatta, the New England Championships. And then after that, moved into lasers and 420s, and then started sailing interscholastically. I went to Milton Academy and sailed there for 4 years. We were lucky enough to win a national championship my senior year, which is part of the reason I think I ended up attending Brown University, where I sailed for 4 years as well. Multiple time All-American, captain of the team, and all of that is great. But the and then what kind of came during my college experience when I was fortunate enough to get a tryout to be part of the Morning Light Project. The Morning Light Project was a Disney produced, envisioned documentary about some young folks doing a Trans-Pac race from Los Angeles, California to Honolulu, Hawaii. And that happened in the year 2007, I guess between what were supposed to be my junior and senior year of college. And it was an amazing experience. It was an online application. I think there was 500-600 people applied online. And it was something that I didn't actually apply to until, no pun intended, the 11th hour, because I wasn't so sure about offshore sailing in general, because I hadn't done a lot of it, prior to that campaign. And, the movie part was really a little weird for me too. It seemed kind of contrived, and I was a little bit worried about kind of how that would work. And anyway, a bunch of my roommates who I was living with at the time applied, convinced me to do the same. And I was selected to be one of the 30 trialists that flew to Long Beach, California that summer. And I guess either earned their way onto the crew or didn't at that point. I guess it did have a little bit of a reality TV show vibe at the time. But I did make the cut. 15 of us then were selected to go to Hawaii, which was like an absolute dream come true. Living in Hawaii for 4 months, training for this 3,000-mile yacht race from Los Angeles to Waikiki on a state-of-the-art Trans-Pac 52, purpose-built for the race that we were about to compete in. And from there, the 15 of us were pared down to 11, which eventually did the trip across the Pacific. But it was there that I really felt like professional sailing, if you will, or a role in the maritime community was a viable career path. I guess that kind of still remains to be proven. But we had amazing coaches that were just coming off the back of a Volvo Ocean Race win in Stan Honey, who's an American-born, very reputable Hall of Fame level offshore navigator. Mike Sanderson, who was the skipper of ABN AMRO in 2005 and 2006. Jerry Kirby, local legend, just all these guys that, were passionate to give back to the sport and became really role models for us as very impressionable 18 to 22-year-olds. And, from that day forward, kind of once I'd graduated, the ocean race, the Volvo Ocean Race, kind of the pinnacle of offshore sailing in a crude perspective, was always really my goal. And I was very fortunate during the Morning Light Project to team up with, meet, befriend a guy by the name of Mark Towell, who was coincidentally the youngest member of the Morning Light crew, living in Hawaii. I convinced him, I twisted his arm to kind of forego or give up, or at least try to give up that Hawaiian lifestyle and apply to Brown and relocate to Rhode Island and the snow and the rain and the seasonality, something that he'd never kind of been exposed to. And lo and behold, Roy Disney writes for recommendation to college. He got in, and Mark's a little younger than me, and I spent some time after graduation working for North Sails in Rhode Island, racing professionally. But really, when Mark graduated from Brown, and the two of us kind of put our nose to the grindstone and went at this full time, we started to make strides, and that was in 2011. And in 2011, I think you can see a couple slides on there, and the right hand side, or some pictures in the right hand side of the slide. We were both participants in what became affectionately known as the Oak Cliff All-American Offshore Team. In 2011, there was a transatlantic race that was put on by the Storm Trysail Club, the New York Yacht Club, and the RORC in England. And one of the entries in that race was a German youth offshore team, and a couple of guys stateside thought, hey, we should have one of these entries. And a guy by the name of Ralph Stites, who runs the USMMA Sailing Foundation, told this group of characters that he was boat rich but cash poor, and he could provide a platform, but then it was up to us to raise the funding and to make it happen. And that was kind of our first foray into I guess building a team, and doing it ourselves, and trying to figure out what that looked like. And through a partnership with Oak Cliff, private donations, commercial partnerships, and some in-kind contributions from the marine community, we were able to compete in the Block Island race, the Annapolis Newport race, the Transatlantic race, and the Fastnet. And I guess as part of that, we really tried to mimic what the ocean race, the Volvo Ocean Race at the time, what that would be like. So we kind of went above and beyond, and we chose to stack sails, and we brought an onboard reporter to try to give value to the folks that had supported us and have made it happen, and to bring them along for the journey. And part of that involved emailing content off the boat. And one of the people that we'd emailed off the boat was a guy by the name of Knut Frostad, who was the CEO of the Volvo Ocean Race at the time. And because of what we sent him, he thought that we'd showed potential, promise, and he helped enroll us in the business development program for the race itself. And we showed up to the start of the 2011-2012 race, which was the last race in the Volvo 70s. And we met with their business development program and talked about sponsorship leads. And it was at that point, it was impressed on us that this is a full-time job, and that just as much as it's about sailing, it's about selling, it's about finance, it's about corporate structure, it's about logistics, it's about, everybody walks into this guy's office and says, I'm the greatest sailor in the world, this time I'm going to win this race. And he says, that's great, but how are you going to get to the start line? And I think what people fail to realize is that getting to the starting line is oftentimes much more difficult than once you get to the start line, getting to the finish line. So with some help from the Ocean Race and their business development program, we were paired up with, put in front of, matched with a company called ALVIMEDICA, which is a Turkish-based medical device company. And Mark and I flew to Amsterdam, which is where their marketing division was headquartered. And we met with those folks, including the CEO, and we were able to kind of get this deal across the line, which is something that the two other folks who had sat down with them prior to us weren't able to do. And just like that, we were off, and it was pretty surreal. The campaign was a campaign full of firsts. I think we turned a lot of heads. I think we exceeded maybe everyone's expectations but our own. We won a couple import races, legs, and we were, the biggest thing for us personally was to round Cape Horn in first place, and capture what I think, biasly, is one of the best pictures in the last 25 years of yachting, which is us in our Volvo 65 rounding Cape Horn there on the left on a perfect day, what was it, a half mile from, the most iconic landmark with the fleet behind us, position that's normally reserved for veterans of the race. So certainly to prove ourselves in that part of the world was no small feat. And I mean, that was the pinnacle, I'd say, of the first race. But what it really did was kind of whet our palate, and it made us hungry for more. There was so much we felt like we could have done better. We didn't know what we didn't know, and to some extent that was a good thing. But on the other hand, we felt like there was a ton that we could improve upon. So shortly after the finish of that race, we immediately started figuring out or asking ourselves, how can we get back to the line and capitalize on some of these learnings? And the first partner to sign up for our second go round in 17-18 was 11th Hour Racing. And we got involved with 11th Hour Racing, I guess, originally way back in 2011. When we did that first transatlantic, they supported us on a very microscopic level. I'm not belittling it, but they helped us obtain sustainably sourced freeze-dried food, which was one place to start, definitely. But then I think during, the relationship really started to flourish when we synced up with them for the Ocean Summit, which was a congregation of like-minded individuals during the Newport stopover in the 14-15 race. And, after the ALVIMEDICA edition, it was a logical place to start. And they were the first folks to sign on, and they actually helped us sign on Vestas, because Vestas was looking for a partner with similar values. Vestas is a Danish-based wind turbine company, wind energy company. So it was a perfect fit. I mean, they sell wind turbines, and it turns out 11th Hour Racing doesn't sell anything. So it was a very good fit in that 11th Hour could use the platform for messaging, and Vestas could use the platform for corporate hospitality. So in some ways it was a match made in heaven, but in other ways it was a very difficult race for us personally on the boat, because it was a little bit late to the show. And although we achieved a lot of early success, we definitely experienced some setbacks along the way. I guess it started for me personally when my son got sick during the race, and I had to take a leg off. And then we had a very unfortunate situation in Hong Kong with a collision with another vessel that resulted in a loss of life, and a very heavy thing for any team to endure. A boat that was seriously compromised and had to be fixed. A serious comeback story for the team to get back in the race and to post an amazing finish around Cape Horn again. Second place for a team that had been through a lot, only to watch our rig fall out of the sky about 70 miles later, not too far from the Falkland Islands. And I guess that was the end of our race from a competitive standpoint. But I think, from a team building standpoint, we continued to fight through, and that's something that I still value today. It was a marathon mission to get the boat back to the start line in Brazil. It was a cobbled together jerry rig that showed up in Brazil just days before we had to depart for the next leg, which was to Newport, Rhode Island, our home port, my home port. A leg that was very important to us, and through a lot of determination from our team, a lot of motivation, a lot of help from our friends and the race organizers, we were able to start that leg and achieve a pretty epic podium result into home. So it was kind of the little things, certainly, that we look back on fondly from that race. But it was the same type of thing from ALVIMEDICA. It was, things didn't go our way. There are certain things that we come to grips with the fact that we couldn't control, but we do feel like, in that addition to the race, when we had the ability to kind of control things and kind of set it up the way we'd like to, we showed great success and great potential. And that was really what motivated us to go again in this next edition of Boat. And the next ocean race, which it's now referred to as, not the Volvo Ocean Race, starts in October of 2022. And maybe I'll just show you guys a little video about that, and we can kind of get into what the future will look like.
Race is probably the most epic thing you can do as a sailor.
We go to places where no one else would go. You'll be probably frightened at times, scared, worried. Hate it. You'll absolutely despise the fact that you're involved. You are pushed to the limits without sleep in such harsh conditions. No one else on the planet gets to do that kind of stuff. It's because I love to be on the ocean, being one with nature.
It's a 9-month race. It's 45,000 miles, and it doesn't stop. It's 24/7.
All right, there we go. I got a little feedback there that maybe it skipped at the advert, but I think you guys got a pretty good taste of what we've been through now twice around the world. The ocean race is a fully crewed, multiple leg endeavor that takes place over the course of now 9 months. In the whipbread, as it was referred to years ago, because of sponsorship and whatnot. First started, it was a race with just a few stops through the Southern Ocean, a lot of crew rotation, 20 people aboard, a little bit more of an adventure, a little less of a competition, certainly less commercially viable. And, over the years, it's evolved into a commercial enterprise with stops all over the world, 10 legs, crosses the equator 4 times. You don't stop at night. I mean, we are racing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The average leg, particularly in the beginning of the race, is about 20 days. It's been oftentimes referred to as the most grueling, team sport on the planet. You look at an NFL football game, it's 4 hours on a Sunday. I'm not saying that's easy, but we don't get to go home. We live with our teammates. We eat with our teammates. We do everything with our teammates, whether we like it or not. There's no escape. And I think, the reason that we do it is, one, it's addictive. Two is the adventure, because, even though it's a competition that we talked about before, we're still circumnavigating the planet, going to some of the most remote locations that you can ever imagine. I mean, this race takes you to a place called Point Nemo, between Auckland, New Zealand, and the tip of South America, which is the most remote, furthest from land place that you can get on planet Earth. And actually, when you are there, aside from your competitors or any kind of tanker traffic, the closest person to you is the person in the space station, which really put it in perspective for me when I was first told such a thing. But this is our holy grail. It's the pinnacle of offshore sailing. It's the most Grand Prix crewed event that you can sail around the world, and that's why it's kind of become our life mission, I guess. At the ripe old age, as I was told before, of 36, it's what I wake up thinking about every day. And this next edition of the race is going to be sailed in a boat called the IMOCA 60, which is a custom-built box rule boat. So in previous editions, we've had box rules, we've had one designs, we've had rating rules. The last two editions that we competed in, we sailed in a boat called the Volvo Ocean 65, which is completely one design, and it comes down to the sailors themselves. Everything is the same. So for us to kind of graduate or take that next step into building our own boat, designing our own boat, was something that Mark and I were personally very excited about. And we're in the process of constructing that boat right now. We'll talk a little bit about that later. The boats are completely insane. They're from the French corridor of the world. They're traditionally for short-handed sailing. So I think our job in a lot of ways is to transform them into crewed offshore machines. They have 8 sails, a rotating wing mast. They have hydrofoils that stick out the side that kind of help us fully foil, semi-foil through some pretty ridiculous latitudes, reaching speeds up to, for the last session, we were going 35 knots. It was absolutely wild. That was in flat water in Brittany, Spain. I had to fly to Spain to get to Brittany, so pardon the misstep there. But in Brittany, France, which is kind of the epicenter of this IMOCA culture, and in a lot of ways, the international offshore scene. The boats are completely wild. They kind of revolve around this 4-year Vendée Globe cycle, and there's been this marriage with the ocean race and the fully crewed configuration. That's going to be the success of this class moving forward. So that's been a very interesting thing for us personally. On board, it is very, very Spartan. You can see in some of the photos there. Boats, this is a boat that we were able to acquire in 2019. It was the old Hugo Boss, owned by Alex Thompson, set up for short-handed sailing. And you can see that that's very obvious because we have people strewn about down below before we were able to modify the boat to accommodate more folks. There's no shower, there's no bathroom. The galley is just a camp stove, basically. We eat freeze-dried food. It's not, I'm not trying to turn it into, something that it's not, because obviously we keep coming back and we love to do it. But the average person spending even an hour on this boat when it's going 35 knots in the middle of the night, thousands of miles from anywhere, would find themselves pretty uncomfortable. And those are the environments that keep us coming back, that we thrive in, that we can't get enough of, when all we're thinking about is the next sked where our competitors are, not necessarily what danger we could potentially be putting ourselves in. So the IMOCA 60 is a new challenge for everybody. As part of the new race, we will be, as a team, constructing a new boat. And that's something that we're doing in a place called Port La Forêt, which is in Brittany, France. We've partnered with Mer Concept, which is a company owned by a French offshore legend by the name of Francois Gabard, who currently holds the single-handed round-the-world record in a 100-foot trimaran. Just when you think you're crazy, you meet some random person in France who's done way more than you, totally crazier than you, gone way faster than you, and done it by themselves. So Francois has been a great partner in that part of the world, and we've kind of set up in his camp, in his facility in Concono, just across the way from Port-la-Forêt. It's like I don't know, New Bedford and Fairhaven. They're very close to each other. And we've signed up Guillaume Verdier to be our naval architect to help design the boat. He designed Team New Zealand, the boat that just won the America's Cup, Metricock, the boat that just won the Vendée Globe. He's a very accomplished naval architect. Couldn't be a nicer guy. Totally unassuming. Very, very humble in his own right. And he's been just a godsend for us. And we have certainly high hopes for our new boat. And we hope it's a big step forward from the boats that were kind of previously built for the Vendée Globe. We're building the boat at a place called CDK Technologies. They have building in Port-la-Forêt, as previously mentioned, but also in Lorient, France. They've built a number of Vendée Globe winners in the past, one of the most experienced IMOCA 60 builders on the planet. It's the first boat build that Mark and I have taken on as a dynamic duo. The Volvo 65, thank goodness, was already done for us, and we were able to kind of put together a team and figure out the financing and deal with the sailing once that was kind of all sorted and behind us. But now we're doing it all together as we kind of ramp up to the big show. But I think whether it's the design aspects, the construction aspects, the sustainability aspects, the carbon footprint aspects, there's a lot to manage in this boat build process. And it's been a challenge certainly for us, and we'll get into a little bit more of that here in a second. I talked about how the IMOCA 60 is traditionally a short-handed platform. When we acquired the boat that we're sailing around on right now in 2019, I partnered with a French sailor by the name of Pascal Badiguery, who I'd sailed against in the last two editions of the Ocean Race. He was a member of Dongfeng race team, which actually won the 17-18 edition of the race, where he was the navigator. He and I partnered up for a couple events in France. The culminating event was called the TJV, the Transat Jacques Vabre. I'm still working on my French. TJV, Transat Jacques Vabre. Which started in France and ended in Brazil. It was a 4,500-mile race, double-handed. It was a huge chapter of my life in a crash course in the IMOCA fleet and in short-handed sailing. I felt personally very exposed. I'd logged hundreds of thousands of ocean miles, but none of them double-handed, none of them in a IMOCA 60, none of them with an autopilot. Normally I'm driving at a steering wheel. I'm not doing the bow. I'm not letting a robot drive. I'm not in charge of sail changes. I'm cooking every meal. I'm the boat captain. You have to know the systems inside and out. And just seeing where these French sailors come from and their well-rounded skill set, their well-rounded approach to the entire discipline was really inspiring. And actually, as a continuation of our learning, Pascal and I guess myself in 2019, that has kind of become the schedule for our ocean race team in 2021 as well. So we can get into that in a bit, but the TJV was like a Herculean moment for myself. Just there's no watch system. It's just you and another person. It's when they're sleeping, you're essentially single-handing. You're doing the navigating, you're in charge of the performance, you're making sure the boat's running. It was challenging but unbelievably rewarding. And when we got to Brazil, it was certainly the most accomplished I'd felt on a personal level, because it was just me so far out of my comfort zone. You know, there was a time on the way down when we tore a sail, had a dead ship. We were driving off a hand-bearing compass, and you know, we were just fighting for the lead at the time. And you know, I had to change the impeller, get the engine going again, charge the batteries, get her back up to speed, and it was just amazing for me, because 2 years ago, prior to that race, that was something that I never would have dreamed of being able to do. And I just had to push myself to a place and, you know, learn things that were previously unimaginable to me. And it was experience that I hope the rest of our team, you know, gets to be part of this year, as the TJV once again becomes our greater team goal. We can touch on that in a little bit. Just to talk about, you know, the sustainability side of our build. It's a huge part of our campaign footprint, and it's something that we measure, and we have measured in previous campaigns, but have never had the luxury, but also the responsibility of building a new boat. You know, just talking about our kind of sustainability journey for a second, if we kind of back up. During the ALVIMEDICA race, you know, we had a boat that was essentially given to us, you know, prefabricated by the ocean race. But at the time, although ocean health was a passion of Mark and mine, I should say, it wasn't really one of the key drivers of a campaign that was more centered around selling medical devices than it was our personal passion of ocean health. So for us, really, the ALVIMEDICA race was about you know, learning about some of the problems that we're being faced with, observing some things out in the ocean that we never thought we'd see, you know, partnering with 11th Hour Racing and really having that aha moment, you know, a personal sustainability awakening, if you will. And then, you know, in our partnership with them in the next race with Vestas and 11th Hour Racing specifically, it was about a consciousness, about spreading the message, about being the megaphone, about you know, sharing some of our stories, but certainly recording you know, a lot of what we were doing as a team. We have a sustainability plan, a sustainability policy, you know, really trying to quantify everything that's going on so that we can use that as a metric for improvement moving forward. And now here we are in our third campaign with this boat build, you know, has a massive part of our carbon footprint, but also a massive opportunity to work with the marine industry, you know, kind of from the inside out, to challenge some of our stakeholders and to really create tangible change. Because unless we work at these things, they're not going to just happen, you know, serendipitously. So whether it's, you know, working with CDK, the folks that are building our boat right now, you know, to do an energy audit, to, you know, redo their ovens, you know, create better efficiencies, save some money, whether it's to challenge CDK to, you know, challenge them to recycle, you know, some of their, you know, carbon offcuts, some of their cardboard rolls, you know, to create a financial incentive for them to do so. You know, there's been a lot that we've done on that front. You know, there's a LCA study, which is a life cycle analysis that we're doing for everything that happens on the build of our boat. We have a 3-person sustainability team. 1 person is embedded in the build team at CDK, measuring absolutely every ounce of everything that goes into the boat. We're working with the IMOCA class, and actually have had it added to the rules for the next cycle that every boat will undergo this same LCA process. We've also worked with the IMOCA class to see that renewable sources of energy will be used on all the new boats moving forward. We're experimenting with a lot of new renewable materials with biocomposites, whether it's flax or power ribs, recycled carbon. I mean, these are all tangible parts of our boat, and we're trying to work with the class and the race organizers to make sure that these things are incentivized for everybody moving forward. You can see here in this picture, We have a slide of a foil that unfortunately we broke when we took delivery of it. But then the question becomes, what are you going to do with it? And what we did is we cut it up into pieces and we sent it to Bristol University in the UK as part of their carbon recycling program. And this foil is going to be recycled and it's going to come back to us in the form of C plate and pad eyes. And we're going to put it on our new boat, which is the perfect example of cradle to grave, and a good example of what we're trying to achieve with some of these metrics and with the life cycle analysis. Recycled carbon fiber has 10% the footprint of virgin carbon fiber. So anywhere you can use it. We use it for our splashes. We use it on some of our non-structural parts. So we're really trying to do everything we can, because if you don't consciously work on these things, they're not going to happen by accident. We're trying to lead by example and create a pathway and make it easier for other people to get involved and to work with the organizers to incentivize these things on the performance side. And to continue on that same theme, when I talked about it with ALVIMEDICA, but the whole entire mission, everything that we're doing just seems so unconquerable in the beginning, whether it was raising the money, whether it was building the boat, whether it was actually sailing around the planet, crossing an ocean. And then when we finally did it all, like a lot of things, you realize that it's not what you thought it was. And we really live on this fragile globe, this very small marble. And if we can sail across these oceans in such a short period of time, maybe they're not as big or as infinite as we thought they were. And like I said before, we've seen some things out there, whether it's marine debris, whether it's changes in our ice gate, whether it's the volatility and changes in weather. We just feel like in a lot of ways, we've been the canaries in the coal mine. We've been the people out there in parts of the world that other people aren't able to go. We bring with us scientific equipment. We're measuring, the amount of ocean plastic that's in any particular part of the world at any particular time. We're measuring salinity, sea surface temperature, dissolved CO2. We're out there practicing citizen science now, which is, we're trying to be part of the solution. Whereas when we first got into this, we didn't even know what a lot of the problems were. So just to see our own personal growth in this space over the last, whatever it is now, 6 years is a pretty cool thing. And it's a very important thing for us to make sure that we bring, different folks along with us in this journey of protecting our planet. I talked about some of the things that we do at sea, whether it's, dropping NOAA weather buoys overboard, whether it's collecting water samples, whether it's, traversing the Malacca Strait, one of the heaviest trafficked straits in the world, and seeing all the cargo ships and, just how we're moving things around and thinking about, why can't those things be sourced domestically? Why are they in containers? Why are they powered by fossil fuels? Just asking all these questions and at least having a consciousness of some of the things that other people oftentimes take for granted. There's the marine debris issue, as previously discussed. You can see in the top left-hand slide or left-hand picture in the slide that's on your screen right now, that was a plastic bag that we caught on our foil. Just in last week's training session in Brittany. We've gotten to the point where marine debris is a competitive hindrance in certain parts of the world. Just the amount of times we have to back down, kind of take down our sails, furl them up, back the boat down, get it, marine debris off our appendages. Or, on the bottom left-hand side, you can see a big patch of sargassum, which is in the Sargassum Sea and in the Caribbean. I mean, those blooms are something that happen because the water temperature is far in excess of what it's been in the past. So it's, we're seeing these things visually, which is why, it's important we do something, but also why it's become so personally important to us and to members of our team. And our team hashtag, which I think really speaks to our team ethos, is OCEANHOUR. It's, what can we do right now? What is your ocean hour? What is your personal, sustainability mission? And that's something that you have to work at, honestly. I talked about the fact that our team has 3 sustainability, team members, embedded in every single part of what we do. As a team, we all do like 10 hours of sustainability training every month, while remote and while on site. It's very important to us that we engage in the communities that we interact with. So we're not just this traveling, sailing road show that kind of shows up, docks in, docks out, and then leaves never to be seen again. So we do a lot of grantee engagement with different, grantees all around the world, whether it's in Cape Town, South Africa, dealing with, water quality and droughts, whether it's, picking up fish nets in Holland when we're in The Hague and turning those into recycled socks. It's like we're really trying to engage with every community that we touch, like the Marine Station in Concono. Justine Matreau, who's a team member of ours based in France. She and I went to the Marine Station, which is the oldest working aquarium in France, last week, and met with a bunch of students there, and explained to them a little bit about our team, our mission, what we're doing, the importance of ocean health. And it's great to see that work on the local level, because just bringing it back to 11th hour racing for a second, we're trying to tackle these big problems, but we feel like the best way to do it is from a grassroots local perspective. And that's something that we try to bring with us everywhere we go. We were very fortunate to operate in 2020 in a very COVID safe manner in Newport, Rhode Island from, I think it was August to October. And we were able to engage with some of our local grantees like Clean Ocean Access, Healthy Seas, Healthy Soils, whether it's, actually it's a good time of year to be talking about it. Whether it's the shrink wrap recycling program that we're running with Clean Ocean Access on Aquidneck Island. It's May, everybody's psyched to get back on the water. Everybody's dusting off their boats and getting them ready to go. And what do you do with your shrink wrap? Do you throw it away? No, you give it to Clean Ocean Access and it gets turned into pellets, and it's the, start of a production of a new item. It's Healthy Seas, Healthy Soils, Rhode Island. It's composting, something that most people don't think affects ocean health, but it certainly does, because it's landfill avoidance. It's the sequestration of greenhouse gases, a reduction in climate change. It's just everything we can possibly be doing to help further our sustainability initiatives. We're really jumping at the opportunity to do. Like I talked about before, we're really trying to take a positive approach to this whole thing. It's not just like, how can we mitigate it? It's how can we regenerate what we've kind of absorbed as a team, shall I say. It's not about just measuring your carbon footprint, buying some offsets and moving on. It's about, how do we minimize, how do we produce positive impact, socially, how do we produce positive impact environmentally, financially, scientifically, how do we practice citizen science, how do we contribute to the community that's given so much to us. We're always trying to set better goals on the water, and also in the context of our sustainability program. And oftentimes people will ask us, what can we do as an individual? What can we do as a group? And one of the big projects that we've been working on during 2020 in this virtual COVID world is our sustainability toolbox, which is full of how-to guides, and hopefully answering some of these questions about, how can I contribute in my everyday life? How can we as an organization be better with our tracking, our footprint, our boat building, our marine industry endeavor, whatever that may be. And you can see it here, www.sustainabilitytoolbox.com. Everybody can visit it. It's a great call to action if everybody's feeling inspired from this chat and is looking to see what they can do personally, or how they could follow the team, get embedded in the team. The toolbox is certainly a great place to start. And I guess, in some ways, that is where I will leave you for now and talk just a little bit about what's next for us and for our team. And then I think we'll open it up to a little Q&A after that. It's almost 8 o'clock, which means I've been talking into a microphone and a computer video now for an hour, which is quite daunting. So it'd be nice to have some back and forth and some banter. But before we get there, and just talk a little bit about what's next for us. Personally, I get my second vaccine on May 11th, and then it's back to France for training for the Ocean Race Europe, which is a fully crewed event. We'll sail with a crew of 5, myself, Pascal Badiguerie, Simon Fisher, Justine Matreau, and Amory Ross, who is our onboard reporter. And then after that, we'll kind of break into 2 different groups and kind of really entrench ourselves in the existing French IMOCA schedule, double-handed schedule. I'll be sailing with Pascal on a new boat that we affectionately refer to as 11-2, which should launch out of CDK sometime end of July. And then Sci-Fi, Simon Fisher, will sail with Justine Matreau, a totally lethal combination. Simon Fisher, who's done 5 Volvo Ocean races in the past, Justine Matreau, a female from Switzerland living in France, who is part of the Dongfeng team that won the last ocean race, part of the all-female team in the ocean race prior to that. Just recently set the round Britain and Ireland record on a class 40 with a couple other guys from Switzerland, accomplished Figaro sailor. They'll be sailing the boat that you see on the screen right there that we affectionately refer to as 11-1. Both of us, 2 double-handed configurations sailing in the Fastnet, the Defi Azimuth, which is in September, which is a 48-hour race there. And then once again, in the TJB, which is really the culmination of the 2021 IMOCA schedule. And this year that race goes from Le Havre in the English Channel in the north of France, around Fernando de Noronha, which is a marine protected area, an island just off of Brazil, and finishes in Martinique. So that is what's on our plate moving forward. And just for me personally, kind of before we get to the Q&A, I'd just like to again say thank you for having me. Hopefully we can do this. We can run this back in a couple years' time in real life, and get something a little bit more engaging, a little bit more back and forth. But it's great to kind of chat with people that we work with. The museum, whether it's Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, New Bedford Community Boating is a grantee of 11th Hour Racing. It's great to do this stuff, and if it's setting the stage for future in-person activation, or it's somewhat rekindling relationships that we've had in the past, it's very rewarding for us, and we're very appreciative of the opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. That is a lot to think about, and a lot of different approaches to thinking about ocean health through a bunch of different channels. We had actually one very specific question that came up during the boat construction piece. He said, "Have you calculated the carbon footprint of the boat?" This is a question from Catherine Duff. Have you calculated the carbon footprint of the boat? And also, how do you recycle spent carbon fiber? Is that really recycling? Is it cutting smaller pieces out of the spent larger pieces?
It's about to become the backdrop.
Sorry about that.
Comparing it to cookie dough. Are you just using the stamper to cut out the pieces and then putting using the rest of the dough for something else, or how do you recycle that?
I think we're calculating the carbon footprint. It's a very it's a very in-depth process. It includes everything from the material itself to its transport, to what happens to the remains, the scraps, the offcuts afterwards. It's the water footprint. It's the CO2 emitted. It's absolutely everything that goes into it, and it's done in line with ISO standards, which is kind of like the European leads, if you will. It's a big part of what our sustainability team does is track, so that we can kind of improve as we move forward. So I think in our last campaign, when we weren't building a boat, and don't quote me on this because I don't have the number in front of me, but I think the total campaign number for us was 1,600 tons of CO2 emitted, and that includes flying people around the world, transport, and this all bakes into our plan. We're trying to live at places where we can walk. We're trying to live at places where we can bike. We're trying to send only essential members of our team where they need to go, do things virtually, source the right materials. So every day we're making a lot of decisions, consciously or subconsciously, and sustainability in our footprint is a big part of that decision-making matrix. I hope that kind of helps answer the question. And then as far as the carbon recycling goes, it's a little voodoo to me, honestly. The foil gets cut up, it gets put into a massive machine, and it spits out raw, recycled, as I alluded to previously, carbon fiber that's recycled with less of a footprint, 10% of the footprint of the virgin fiber, but also, which is why we can't use it for the entirety of our boat, it doesn't have the same properties. It's not as strong for a given weight. I mean, there's a lot that can be done on that front. But to the best of my knowledge, and don't quote me on this, it can all get recycled, but it's just not the same product that you'd expect to achieve with the virgin equivalent on the back end.
Yeah, you would reference that you wouldn't use it for it's not suitable for every purpose in the boat, but that it is still very usable.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We have a question from Martha, who asked if the honeycomb design on the deck is a solar panel.
It's not, but it looks great from the drone. We do have solar panels in the back of the boat that you can see there, kind of just under the tiller. Solar is going to be a big part of the new boat. Obviously, the more solar that you have, the less fuel you have to carry, and that's one of those things where a sustainable alternative can be a competitive advantage. The less fuel, the lighter the boat, less displacement, faster it goes to the water. So we'll be able to, in theory, produce around 75% of our power from solar on the new boat. And there are days when we won't need to charge, we won't need the fuel, but that really depends on the sunshine and the latitude. I think everybody understands the intermittence of not only solar, but the hydro generators that we carry on board as well. So wherever we can reduce fossil fuel, we do, but then there's also a safety component to it, where when you need to use that engine and get back to somebody in the water or help in a precarious situation, we need that certainly in the tank as backup.
Got to be able to get there. Thanks. So Sarah asked if you do, but before we go to this, what sort of ocean testing do you do? Sarah asked specifically if you do ocean testing during the race itself or only when you are practicing. And she commented that she can't imagine that there's a lot of space, a lot of room for testing equipment when you're racing.
There's definitely not, but having a close relationship with the race organization has been really helpful for stuff like this, because even though it's a box rule and we're trying to optimize where we can, if every single boat, or we can encourage every single boat, or even better, we can mandate every single boat carry these scientific devices and continuously collect this data, then it's like for like. It's not a competitive disadvantage. So we've definitely done it during our training. We've done it during the last race, and the hope is that every boat will be doing it as we move forward.
That's great. We had another just question pop up. How many people are involved and employed full-time or part-time by 11th Hour Racing? What's the structure of the organization like?
It depends. The 11th Hour Racing team currently has 5 sailors, 3 sustainability team members. We have 8 shore team members. We have a 2-person comms department. I think all in all, we're 20 folks. And I think 11th Hour Racing, the sponsor, the parent, kind of located in Newport, Rhode Island, has 12 different employees. I think they have operations, admin, legal, sustainability, comms, grantees, the scientific department. So it's no small operation.
It's a big operation and under the larger umbrella of the 11th Hour Project. Yeah, sounds fascinating. I am looking one last time for a few questions in the chat. I think I grabbed these that came in. If anyone else wants to chime in, feel free to do so now. Otherwise, I would love to hear from you before we close. What are some of your what are your favorite waters for sailing? Or what brings you the greatest joy on the water?
It's funny, actually. Today, randomly, my dad called me and he said, "Hey, can you help me deliver my power boat?" And I said, "Yeah, but I'm on like daddy duty." So I grabbed my daughter, and the two of us drove down to the marina, and we did a 10-mile delivery around Papa Squash Point in Bristol, Rhode Island, into Bristol Harbor, and that kind of really brought me back, because there's really no place else I'd rather be sailing. In Bristol Harbor, it's I get to go a lot of cool places and do a lot of cool things, but there's nothing like sailing kind of where you learn to sail, in
waters.
In Newport, Rhode Island, and in Bristol, Rhode Island, and there's something to kind of calling that home and always having some place to come back to. And now to kind of share that with my family, my growing family, is something that I definitely don't take for granted.
One last question from Martha. I think I'm understanding this correctly. Do you have sponsors for Seaworthy? I'm not sure I'm reading that correctly. I don't know if you understand the question. Seaworthy clothing for product testing. You have sponsors for Seaworthy clothing for product testing.
We Musto is a technical partner of ours. We use them for all of our gear onshore on the boat. It's now 3 campaigns with them. I think that's what you're talking about. But they're great. They're great to work with. We have confidence in the product, which is important, which allows us to do our job in a dry way. For us, it's like they're the best in the business when it comes to kind of rugged offshore gear. And if you're not going to go with them, it doesn't really matter who you go with, because none of the other ones are even close. So just their relationship with Gore-Tex and kind of their product refinement over the years is great for us. And actually that's a kind of bit of a supplier story, because we told them 2 races ago that we wouldn't work with them again unless they were able to reduce the amount of plastic packaging that they sent everything to us in. And to their credit, they responded. And as the consumer, as the person buying, purchasing, making the choice, it's amazing how much power you have. And they were able to reduce their plastic footprint by 70% with everything that they kind of gave to not only our team, but they were the race supplier as well. So it was feedback well taken.
Wow, that's great. It's such a simple thing, it would seem.
Yeah, for sure.
We have one last, I think this will probably be the last question for tonight, but Monica asks, what has been your favorite marine life sighting during a race?
Seen a lot of stuff. I think albatross are pretty remarkable with their massive wingspan, just so far from anything. You just kind of wonder, where do they eat? What do they do? How do they stop? You know, like what's the goal? I mean, their wingspans are massive. I get kind of numb to dolphin because we see so many of them, but on my way to Bermuda a couple years ago, I like, as far as the eye could see, there was a pod of dolphin that we were right in the middle of. It must have been 1,000. That was pretty remarkable. We see sharks, whales, turtles all the time, and we're lucky that we're able to.
Wonderful. Maybe inured to them, but they're magical to all of us, and the albatross is truly a remarkable creature.
Yeah, and not to one more thing here, but I mean, we work with a lot of organizations on marine mammal tracking. So like before we'll do a transatlantic trip or any particular leg of the race, we'll kind of be very conscious of what marine protected areas, what whale species are migrating through this particular part of the world at any given time. And when we do see these things, we report back to the the entities that we'd work with prior to the start or prior to the trip to make sure that we're doing our part to not only quantify but to track these marine mammals. So it's a cool part of what we get to do.
That's wonderful. We keep getting questions. I keep saying the last and they keep popping up. So John,
maybe my presentation should have been a half hour shorter and we could have just done a question.
This is it's another great question. What kind or variety of strengths and skills does your racing crew have, and how do you recharge at sea? Do you recharge at sea?
We try to recharge when we get there and leave it all out on the race course, but it's a fine balance because it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you got to kind of get rest when you can and be conscious about when it's important and when it's kind of not, and cruising, and are we in a high pressure system and a gradient where we can just kind of chip away for a couple days, or do we have to be awake and alert and tack at this particular time, or it could be days of elapsed time. So I think knowing when to focus intently and when to kind of get your rest is really important. And then I think a lot of that comes with cool heads and cool minds and the people that you surround yourself with. And we're always looking for well-rounded individuals, not only good sailors, but people that you can live with on a 60-foot carbon box for 20 days at a time. People that bring more to the table than just their sailing skill. Their intangibles, their kind of hand skills, whether they're mechanics, boat builders, sail makers, medics. I mean, just keeping the thing running, the boat running on a day-to-day basis is a big deal. So I think the more you can do and the better you can do it, the more likely you are to be a contributor on the team.
Well, that's wonderful. It is a lot. You've given us all a lot of things to think about. It's an incredibly complex operation. Not that that's a surprise, but when you layer all of the sustainability questions into it, it creates another layer of complexity in everything you do. But obviously it is work that is well worth doing, and really thank you and your crew, the 11th Hour team, for sharing you with us this evening. Great to know that the toolkit is available online. I know we'll have a bunch of questions on that, and that is on the 11th Hour Racing team website. Is that correct? 11th Hour Racing, we can find that.
I think it's the Sustainability Toolbox, but I'm sure there's a link to it from our website or on our social channels or whatever. We're out there. We're pretty easy to find, and we'd appreciate, the follow and the engagement, and and we'll do the same with you all, certainly, as we move forward.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your experiences with us, Charlie, and all of your expertise. We really wish you the best. Good luck on your vaccination, return trip, and future adventures.
Thank you, guys. Take care.